Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The air in the Rusty Belt orbital station's bar hung heavy with a peculiar cocktail of odors: industrial smoke, ozone, and the distinct biological emissions of a dozen different species. Neon signs cast their garish colors across the dimly lit establishment, painting kaleidoscopic patterns on the weathered faces of mercenaries, smugglers, and miners. The constant, low hum of the station's life support systems provided a baseline to the cacophony of alien languages, clinking glasses, and occasional bursts of raucous laughter. At a battered metal table in the corner sat Alex Thorne, his scarred hands steady as they held his cards. Years of military service in the Corps had left their mark on him, not just in the physical scars that crisscrossed his skin, but in the perpetual wariness that sharpened his gaze. Engine grease had worked its way so deeply into the creases of his palms that it seemed a permanent part of him now, like the cynicism that had settled in his soul after watching his squad die. His fingers, thick and calloused, were those of a man who understood machinery, who trusted in the tangible, the mechanical, a man whose faith was placed in what he could build, repair, or if necessary, destroy. Across from him sat his opponent, a desperate Zartani alien with 4 bloodshot eyes blinking asynchronously. The creature's scaled skin had lost its luster, and its breathing sounded labored through gill-like slits. The alien's hands trembled slightly as it placed its final asset on the table, a metallic key token with intricate etchings. "All I have left," the Zartani wheezed, gesturing to the token. "Ship, the silent tear. She is cursed, but she yours if you win. Take her, with her cargo." Alex's expression remained impassive, the perfect gambler's mask. Inside, his mind calculated odds and possibilities with the precision of the engineer he'd once been. The alien's 4 eyes darted between Alex's face and his cards, searching for any hint of weakness. "Final call," Alex said, his voice carrying the grit of someone who'd inhaled too much battlefield smoke in his lifetime. "Show." The Zartani laid down its cards, a respectable hand. For a moment, hope flickered across the alien's features, its gill slits flaring. Alex allowed himself the ghost of a smile before revealing his own cards. A bluff. A masterful, cold-blooded bluff. The Zartani stared at the cards, all 4 eyes widening in disbelief. A guttural sound emerged from deep within its throat, something between a curse and a sob. It slid the key token across the table with a defeated push. "Her oath now yours," the Zartani said, rising unsteadily to its feet. As it shuffled away, it tossed a final warning over its shoulder. "Her oath now yours." Alex pocketed the key token, dismissing the cryptic words as the bitter ramblings of a loser. He'd heard stranger things in the bars scattered across the galaxy's fringes. What mattered was that he now owned a ship, his ticket away from this rusting station and the ghost that seemed to follow him from one decrepit outpost to another. The docking bay stretched before him, cold and empty save for maintenance droids silently going about their eternal tasks. Alex's boots echoed on the metal walkway as he approached Bay 17, where his newly acquired prize waited. The silent tear lived up to her in name. She hung in her docking clamps, quiet and still as a tomb. The ship was old, far older than Alex had anticipated. Her hull bore the pockmarked evidence of countless micrometeorite impacts, and patches of different metals suggested hasty repairs made over decades of service. Yet there was something undeniably elegant about her design, curved where most ships were angular, with a grace that spoke of alien aesthetics rather than human utility. Alex pressed the key token against the entry panel. The ship recognized it with a reluctant hiss, the airlock cycling open like an exhalation from long-held breath. The interior lights activated automatically, though they struggled to push back the darkness, casting more shadows than illumination. The temperature inside dropped precipitously. Alex's breath clouded before him as he moved through the main corridor, his engineer's eyes cataloging details automatically. Emergency power only, life support at minimal levels, navigation systems in standby mode. The ship felt like a mausoleum, preserved but lifeless. His boots rang against the deck plates, each step returning a hollow echo that seemed to emphasize the emptiness around him. A subtle vibration in the bulkheads, barely perceptible, suggested dormant systems, like the slow heartbeat of a creature in deep hibernation. Along the main corridor stood rows of empty bunks, each bearing a faded symbol that Alex couldn't decipher. Some family crest or clan marking, he supposed. His fingers traced one of the symbols, and dust came away on his fingertips. No one had slept here for a very long time. The silence pressed against his eardrums, broken only by the occasional creak of the hull and the soft sound of his own breathing. Something about the emptiness raised the hairs on the back of his neck. Alex had never been superstitious. He trusted in machines and the laws of physics, not in curses or omens. But the Zartani's words echoed uncomfortably in his mind. Her oath now yours. He shook off the feeling. A ship was just a ship, metal and circuitry, nothing more. And if there was cargo valuable enough to trade, all the better. The medical bay doors slid open with a protesting groan. Unlike the rest of the ship, this room hummed with activity. In the center, shrouded in a cloud of crystalline frost, stood a single cryogenic capsule. Its control panel glowed with steady blue lights, the only vibrant color in the otherwise gray interior. Alex approached cautiously, wiping condensation from the capsule's viewing port. Through the icy glass, he saw a face, feminine, alien, and unnervingly beautiful. Blue skin, almost luminescent against the capsule's white interior. Silver hair spread across the pillow like liquid mercury. Her features were humanoid enough to read as female, yet clearly not human. The cheekbones too sharp, the brow too pronounced, the ears gently pointed. Even in cryosleep, there was an ethereal grace to her, a refinement that stood in stark contrast to Alex's own weathered, utilitarian presence. Where he was all angles and scars, she seemed composed of flowing curves and perfect symmetry. The vital signs displayed on the capsule's monitor showed minimal activity. A heartbeat so slow it barely registered. Brain functions at the lowest sustainable level. She was alive, but just barely, suspended in the twilight between life and death. Alex considered his options. The alien woman was clearly valuable, perhaps a political prisoner or a rare specimen, or even a high-ranking official of some species he wasn't familiar with. Whatever the case, she represented profit. Far more profit than this aging ship would bring as salvage. Decision made, he activated the revival protocol on the capsule's control panel. The system responded instantly, the capsule humming as it began the careful process of returning its occupant to full consciousness. Alex stepped back, hand moving instinctively to the blaster at his hip. Better safe than sorry. The capsule's frosted canopy slid open with a pneumatic hiss, releasing a cloud of icy vapor. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, in a motion too swift for Alex to track, the woman's eyes snapped open. They were silver, like her hair, but with an inner luminescence that seemed to pierce through Alex. There was no disorientation in those eyes, no confusion or gratitude, just pure glacial fury. In the silent standoff that followed, Alex realized the cargo he'd claimed might cost him far more than he'd bargained for. The blue-skinned woman moved with surprising grace for someone who had been in cryogenic suspension. Each motion seemed calculated, precise, conserving energy while projecting controlled power. She sat up slowly, her silver eyes never leaving Alex's face, her expression hardening into something between disgust and rage. "You have defiled a tomb," she said, her voice resonant and accented but perfectly understandable. "This vessel is sacred. You had no right to board." Alex kept his distance, hand still resting on his blaster. "I won it in a fair game. It's my property now." His voice was blunt, matter-of-fact, the voice of a man who saw the universe as a series of transactions, of possessions to be acquired or lost. Her eyes widened slightly, a flash of something, pain perhaps, crossing her features before the mask of anger returned. "One? Like a trinket? The silent tear is not a possession to be gambled away. It is a vessel of honor, a carrier of oaths." Her speech carried the cadence of ritual, of words passed down through generations. Where his approach was practical, hers was bound in tradition and reverence. "Look," Alex said, adopting the reasonable tone he'd used when negotiating with hostile locals during his core days, "I don't know what arrangement you had with the previous owner, but legally this ship belongs to me now, including everything and everyone on it." The woman slid from the capsule, her movements betraying only the slightest unsteadiness. She wore a fitted bodysuit of some iridescent material that shifted colors with her movements. from midnight blue to deep purple. Around her neck hung a medallion that matched the key token Alex had won. Her slender fingers, unmarked by labor or conflict, traced the medallion's surface with familiar reverence. "The Zartani had no right," she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "He was entrusted as guardian while I slept, not as owner to barter away our legacy." Alex shrugged. "Take it up with him if you ever see him again. For now, this is my ship, and I am Kaelin," she interrupted, drawing herself up to her full height, which nearly matched Alex's. "Last guardian of the oath, sole survivor of the Silent Clan. And you are an interloper who knows nothing of what he has claimed." There was something in her tone, a certainty, a weight of authority, that gave Alex pause. This was no ordinary passenger or random alien he could simply drop at the next port. Whatever game he'd won himself into was more complicated than he'd imagined. "Alex Thorne," he replied simply, "former Corps engineer, and current owner of this vessel." His oil-stained fingers tapped against his thigh, a pragmatist's impatience against her ceremonial gravity. Kaelin's expression shifted subtly, a calculating look replacing the raw anger. "Engineer," she repeated, as if testing the word. "Then perhaps you understand value, functionality." She gestured around them. "Have you accessed the ship's systems yet? Have you flown her?" Alex had to admit he hadn't. The revival of the cargo had been his first priority. "The silent tier will not respond to you," Kaelin stated, moving past him toward the corridor. "Come, I will show you what you have truly won." Curiosity overriding caution, Alex followed her to the bridge. The command center was unlike any he'd seen on human vessels, more organic in design, with controls that seemed to flow into one another rather than being arranged in rigid patterns. Kaelin placed her palm on a central console, and immediately the bridge came to life. Displays illuminating, systems powering up fully. The ship hummed around them, the vibration changing pitch like a living creature awakening. Lights that had been dim now glowed with a warm, pulsing radiance that seemed to follow Kaelin as she moved across the bridge. Her elegant blue fingers danced across the control surfaces with the precision and grace of a musician, each movement activating systems that had remained dormant to Alex's rougher touch. The stark contrast between them was never more apparent, her hands unblemished and flowing in their movements against the mechanical precision and scarred utility of his own. "The Silent Tier is a covenant ship," she explained, her voice taking on a formal cadence, "biometrically linked to the Guardian of the Oath. To me, navigation, engines, even life support, all are keyed to my voice, my touch, my genetic signature." Alex frowned, the implications becoming clear. "You're saying the ship won't work without you. It will not." "Not fully." She turned to face him, the silver of her eyes catching the light from the displays. "The Silent Tier is not merely a vessel of metal and technology. It is the last sanctuary of my people, the final vessel of our covenant." She touched the medallion at her throat. "My family, my clan, they died fulfilling the first part of our ancient oath. I am the last guardian, the biometric key to all systems. And now the oath falls to you as the ship's new owner." Alex didn't like where this was heading. "What oath?" Kaelin's expression became solemn. "The oath to carry the navigational data of my people's sanctuary to the gravitational anomaly known as Charybdis and destroy it there, preventing it from falling into the hands of the pursuers who would use it to find and eliminate the last of my kind." Her voice took on the formal cadence of ritual. "We swear by the blood of our ancestors, by the light of the 7 moons, that we shall protect the sacred path with our final breath. This is the covenant. This is the oath of the Silent Clan." Alex moved to a nearby console, calling up data on the anomaly. Star charts and gravitational readings appeared, showing a region of space where light itself seemed to bend and warp. "Charybdis," he murmured, professional curiosity momentarily overriding his frustration. "Crazy gravitational distortions." His fingers moved across the controls, running basic simulations. Theoretically, if you calculated the vector correctly and redirected energy to the shields, you could avoid falling in and instead ride along the edge. But for that, you'd need to be either a genius or suicidal. He dismissed the display with a wave of his hand. The gravity of her words hung in the air between them. Alex let out a disbelieving laugh. "You expect me to fly this ship into a gravitational anomaly? On a suicide mission? Because of some oath I never took? The oath transferred with ownership, Kaelin said simply. It is how our laws work. The one who commands the silent tier inherits his purpose. Alex's laugh turned bitter. Your traditions aren't my problem. I'm not going to die for a dead man's oath. He moved to the navigation console, attempting to access the controls. The system remained dark under his touch. I'm going to strip this ship for parts and drop you at the nearest habitable world. Kaelin watched him with something close to pity. You have no choice. The ship will not obey you without me. You are a prisoner on your own prize. Alex's eyes narrowed. Years in the Corps had taught him that control could be taken through technical means, if not through authority. He pulled a multi-tool from his pocket and knelt beneath the navigation console, prying open an access panel. What are you doing? Kaelin demanded, suddenly alert. What engineers do best, Alex replied, his fingers already tracing the unfamiliar circuitry. Adapting. Every biometric system has a bypass. It's just a matter of finding it. Kaelin's expression hardened. You would defile the sacred systems of my people. I'm claiming what's mine, Alex countered, not looking up from his work. Kaelin's hand moved to her medallion. Then you leave me no choice. Before Alex could react, the gravity on the bridge disappeared. His body lifted from the floor, tools floating from his hands. Kaelin, apparently prepared for the maneuver, had anchored herself to a console with a hidden restraint. Restore gravity immediately, Alex demanded, twisting helplessly in the zero-G environment. Acknowledge the oath, and I will, she replied calmly, floating effortlessly as if born to zero gravity. Alex managed to grab a handhold on a nearby bulkhead, anchoring himself. Two can play this game, he growled, using his free hand to continue working on the exposed circuitry. With a spark and a flicker of lights, the life support display turned red. Temperature controls disengaged, announced the ship's automated system. Atmospheric regulation compromised. The air on the bridge began to grow noticeably colder. Their breath fogged in front of them. You're endangering us both, Kaelin warned, her calm facade cracking slightly. Then stop fighting me, Alex shot back. He pulled another wire and the lights dimmed. I've spent most of my life bypassing security systems more complex than yours. It's only a matter of time. Before Alex could respond, a piercing alarm shattered the tense silence. Security screens activated automatically, showing external views of the docking bay. Armed figures in environmental suits were approaching the silent tier, and the station's docking clamps had locked down, securing the ship in place. In an instant, their power struggle was forgotten. Kaelin restored gravity with a gesture, sending Alex crashing to the floor. He scrambled to his feet, immediately assessing the new threat. We're trapped, Alex muttered, recognizing the station's security protocols for ship seizure. Kaelin moved to the viewport, her expression hardening as she watched the approaching figures. They will take the ship, desecrate the memory of my clan. She turned to Alex, desperation breaking through her proud demeanor. You must help me. You are an engineer. Alex assessed their situation with cold pragmatism. Station security could cut through the hull given enough time. The ship was locked down, and without Kaelin's cooperation, he couldn't fly it anyway. Whether he liked it or not, their fates were temporarily aligned. Can you release the docking clamps from here? He asked, slipping into the focused mindset that had kept him alive through combat situations. Kaelin nodded, placing her palm on the console again. What is your plan? We need to break free before they cut through. Then we need to disable their pursuit capabilities. Alex moved to what he assumed was the weapon station. Does this ship have any defensive systems? Minimal, Kaelin replied, her fingers dancing across the console's surface. But enough for what you suggest. What followed was a symphony of coordinated action. Alex called out commands with the precision of a military engineer, and Kaelin executed them through the ship's interface. He was the strategist, she was the conduit to the vessel's systems. Together they functioned as a single unit. With each successful maneuver, the silent tier systems responded more fluidly, the ship's vibration shifting from the reluctant hum of machinery to something more alive, a purr of satisfaction, a warrior's exhilaration. Redirect power to the aft shields, Alex ordered as the security team began cutting through the airlock. Command accepted. Shields at maximum capacity, Kaelin responded, her voice steady despite the chaos. The ship's lights pulsed briefly, as if acknowledging the command. Prepare for evasive maneuver on my mark. Engines primed, awaiting command. The deck plates beneath them thrummed with potential energy. Alex studied the external displays, calculating trajectories and timing. Now, brake port and accelerate to maximum thrust. The silent tears shuddered as Ellen executed the command. There was a screech of tearing metal as the ship wrenched itself free from the partially severed docking clamps. The sudden acceleration threw them both against the consoles, but Kaelin maintained her connection to the systems. The ship keened, a sound between pain and liberation, as it tore free of its restraints. Station defense turrets targeting, she reported, her voice tight with concentration. Come on, girl, hold together, Alex muttered, patting the console almost affectionately, his oil-stained fingers leaving marks on the pristine surface. Rotating shield distribution. Prepare to vent plasma from the port nacelle on my mark. Alex watched the tracking patterns of the defense systems. Mark! The vented plasma created a momentary sensor blind spot that confused the automated targeting systems long enough for the silent tier to slip past the station's outer defense perimeter. Warning shots flashed past them, illuminating the bridge in staccato bursts of light. That's it, old girl, Alex encouraged as the ship responded to Kaelin's commands with surprising agility. Show them what you can do. They were nearly clear when a lucky shot from a security vessel struck their hull. The impact sent a shudder through the ship, and warning alarms blared across the bridge. Alex was thrown sideways, colliding with a bulkhead as emergency containment protocols activated. A section of the hull had been breached, and the automatic systems sealed off the affected area. Alex felt the searing pain of a plasma burn across his arm, where he'd been caught in the edge of the containment field. He gritted his teeth against the pain, focusing on the displays. Status report, he called out. Kaelin's voice came through the internal comms. Hull breach contained. Section 7 sealed. Pursuit vessels falling behind as we approach the asteroid field. They had escaped, but at a cost. Alex examined his burned arm, noting with clinical detachment that the injury, while painful, wasn't severe enough to compromise his function. He made his way back to the bridge, where Kaelin was monitoring their trajectory through what appeared to be a dense field of asteroids and debris. The adrenaline of their escape faded, leaving behind the dull throb of his injury and the stark reality of their situation. They were fugitives now, in a ship that Alex technically owned but couldn't control without Kaelin's cooperation. And she was committed to a suicide mission he wanted no part of. A new alarm blared from the engineering console. Kaelin moved to it, her expression darkening. The primary reactor was damaged in the escape, she reported. Containment field is fluctuating. If it fails, we're dead, Alex finished, already moving toward the engine room. How long do we have? Minutes, perhaps less, Kaelin replied, following him. The damage is beyond the automated repair systems. The corridor to engineering was bathed in flashing red warning lights. As they reached the reactor chamber, Alex could see the problem immediately. The main power coupling had been partially severed, causing energy to arc dangerously across the gap. The reactor core itself pulsed with unstable energy, its normal blue glow occasionally flaring to a dangerous white. We need to stabilize that coupling before the containment field fails, Alex said, assessing the damage with a professional eye. I need to get in there. Kaelin gripped his arm. The radiation levels are lethal to humans. Even I can only withstand short exposure. Alex scanned the chamber, his mind racing through possibilities. Then we work together. I can talk you through the repairs. Me, Kaelin looked uncertain for the first time since he'd met her. I am not an engineer. But you have the biometric connection to the ship's systems, Alex pointed out. And I can guide you through every step. It's our only chance. Kaelin hesitated, then nodded. What must I do? Alex directed her to a nearby storage compartment. There should be radiation protection gear in there. It won't make the chamber safe, but it will give you a few minutes. As she donned the protective suit, Alex pulled up schematics of the reactor on a nearby terminal. The primary coupling is connecting to the upper power distribution node. You need to reroute power through the secondary system while simultaneously reinforcing the containment field. That requires access to multiple systems at once, Kaelin pointed out. Which is why I need to talk you through it, Alex said grimly. Every move has to be precisely timed. One mistake, and the reactor goes critical. Kaelin sealed the helmet of her protective suit. I am ready. She entered the reactor chamber and Alex established communication through the internal comm system. What followed was an intricate dance of technical instructions and precise execution. Alex called out directions with surgical precision, guiding Kaelin's every movement as she worked to stabilize the failing systems. The coupling is too damaged, Kaelin reported after several tense minutes. I cannot restore the connection. Then we need to bypass it entirely, Alex decided. There's an auxiliary power routing system beneath the main console. You'll need to reconfigure it to handle the primary load. That would require removing my gloves to access the biometric controls, Kaelin replied. The radiation exposure would be significant, Alex acknowledged. But if you don't, we all die anyway. Through the observation window, their eyes met. In that moment, something passed between them, a mutual recognition of what was being asked and offered. Guide me, Kaelin said simply. Alex talked her through the delicate process, watching as she removed her protective gloves to place her bare hands on the biometric interface. The skin on her hands visibly burned from the radiation, but she didn't flinch or hesitate, following his instructions with perfect precision. Now, Alex called as the indicators reached critical levels. Execute the bypass. Kaelin's fingers danced across the controls, and for a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the reactor's glow stabilized, returning to its normal blue. The warning alarms silenced one by one. You did it, Alex breathed, relief washing over him. Kaelin staggered from the chamber, her exposed hands blistered and raw. Alex rushed to help her, supporting her weight as the chamber doors sealed behind them. The ship will live, she murmured, her voice weak but satisfied. Later, as they drifted in the relative safety of the asteroid field, Kaelin approached Alex with a small container. She opened it to reveal a bluish gel that gave off a faint, pleasant aroma. For your wound, she said simply, gesturing to his burned arm. Alex hesitated, then extended his injured arm. Her blue fingers, now partially healed thanks to her species' regenerative abilities, were surprisingly gentle as they applied the cooling gel to his blistered skin. The relief was immediate, the pain receding to a manageable level. Regenerative compound, she explained. It will accelerate healing and prevent scarring. As she worked, Alex studied her face. In the quiet aftermath of their shared ordeal, he could see beyond the warrior's mask she wore. There was a profound sadness in her eyes, a weariness that spoke of burdens carried too long alone. Your hands, he said, nodding to the healing burns. You risked permanent damage. The silent tear is more than a ship to me, she replied simply. It is the last fragment of my people, my heritage. Your clan, he said, breaking the silence. What happened to them? Kaelin's hands stilled momentarily. They died protecting the secret coordinates to our sanctuary world. The pursuers, those who would exterminate what remains of my kind, they attacked without warning. The silent tier was meant to be our final defense, carrying the navigational data to Charybdis where it would be destroyed, forever hiding our people. She resumed applying the gel. I was wounded in the attack. They placed me in cryosleep to heal while they began the journey, but they never reached Charybdis. The pursuers found them. Everyone died, except me, hidden in suspended animation. Alex thought of his own team, his own failures. I led a core engineering unit, he said, the words emerging unbidden. Our last mission was securing an abandoned research facility. Standard protocols dictated specific entry procedures. I followed them to the letter. He flexed his fingers, feeling the gentle pressure of Kaelin's touch on his arm. There was a fail-safe system the intelligence reports hadn't mentioned. When we breached the facility following protocol, it triggered. Everyone died except me. I was checking the external power couplings when it happened. The confession hung in the air between them, two survivors carrying the weight of those they couldn't save. You blame yourself for following your orders, Kaelin observed. I blame myself for trusting in protocols over instinct, Alex corrected, for believing that rules would keep us safe in a galaxy that doesn't care about rules. Kaelin finished treating his wound and sealed the container of gel. And yet here you are surviving, as am I. She met his gaze directly. Perhaps there is purpose in our survival. Before Alex could respond, an alert sounded from the bridge. They moved as one to investigate, the moment of connection broken by the more immediate concern of potential danger. On the sensor display, a new signature had appeared. A ship, larger than station security vessels, moving with purpose rather than the random drift of asteroid field debris. Kaelin's posture stiffened as she studied the signature. Black hounds, she whispered, her voice tight with recognition and fear. The enemies of my captain. They've found us. The Black Hound's vessel loomed on their view screen, its design aggressive and predatory. Dark hull plating absorbed rather than reflected light, making it seem like a mobile shadow against the starfield. Weapon ports dotted its surface like malevolent eyes, and its size dwarfed the silent tier. A communication request flashed on the console. Keglin looked to Alex, uncertainty momentarily replacing her usual composure. "They're hailing us," she said. Alex weighed their options. They couldn't outrun the larger vessel, especially not in the damaged state of the silent tier. Fighting was equally futile given the disparity in their offensive capabilities. Except, he decided. Let's see what they want. The view screen shifted to show the interior of the Black Hound's bridge. A humanoid figure sat in what was clearly a command chair, though shadows obscured most of his features. What was visible suggested cybernetic enhancements, a gleaming metal plate where part of his jaw should have been, an eye replaced by a glowing red optical implant. Well, the figure's voice rasped through the comm system, distorted either by the implants or by deliberate modulation. The silent tier. We've been hunting this ghost ship for a long time. The figure leaned forward, light falling across more of his face to reveal scarred tissue meshing with metal components. I am Vex, commander of the Black Hounds, and you are not the crew I expected to find. Alex kept his expression neutral. The ship is mine. Won in a fair game. His pragmatic claim to ownership stood in stark contrast to the ritual and tradition that defined Keklin's relationship with the vessel. A metallic laugh echoed through the speakers. "One? How convenient. Then you won't mind surrendering the treasures Keklin was carrying, the artifacts he stole before disappearing." Alex noticed Keklin's confusion at the masculine pronoun, but she remained silent, her posture rigid beside him. "There are no treasures aboard," Alex replied evenly. "Just an old ship and its systems." Vex's cybernetic eye flared brighter. "Don't play games with me, human. We know Keklin was transporting valuable artifacts, ancient technology worth more than entire star systems." The cybernetic man leaned forward, his organic eye narrowing. "Perhaps you don't know the full story. Your predecessor, Captain Keklin, wasn't just a thief, he was a traitor. We were partners once, brothers in arms." The bitterness in Vex's voice was palpable, even through the distorted comm system. "We risked everything to obtain those artifacts together, fighting our way through the orbital defenses of Zelix Prime. When the mission went sideways, he left me to tea, taking our prize and vanishing. Half my body had to be replaced with these." He gestured to his cybernetic parts. "The hunt isn't just about profit, human. It's about justice." Vex's gaze shifted to Keklin. "Hand over the artifacts, along with the blue-skinned female, and you might live to see another day. She's part of what he stole, an ancient being with knowledge worth killing for." Alex felt Keklin tense beside him. Her hand moved subtly to a concealed weapon at her thigh. "There are no artifacts here," Alex repeated, his mind racing through potential strategies. "And the woman stays with me. She's part of my crew now." Vex's organic eye narrowed. "You're either brave or foolish. Perhaps both." He gestured to someone off screen. "You have one standard hour to reconsider. After that, we take what we want from your corpse." The communication ended, leaving them in tense silence. "They think I have treasures," Keklin said, turning to Alex. "They don't understand. The only thing of value I carry is knowledge, the coordinates to my people's sanctuary." "And your Captain Keklin?" Alex asked, watching her reaction carefully. "Who was he to you?" "My clan leader, my uncle," she replied, grief briefly crossing her features. "I know nothing of this Vex or their alleged partnership. If they were once allies, Vex must have betrayed him first. My uncle would never abandon an honorable ally." Alex moved to the navigation console. "Whatever the truth, we need to find a way out of this asteroid field that doesn't lead us straight to their weapons." He glanced at the sensor readings. "The field gets denser toward the galactic west. If we can navigate through it—" "They will follow," Keklin pointed out. "Their ship is larger, but they have advanced sensors. They hunt for a living." Alex studied the field more carefully, his engineer's mind cataloging possibilities. "These aren't just asteroids," he realized, zooming in on the readings. "These are wrecks, ancient ships, a graveyard." Keklin nodded. "Many vessels meet their end in these regions. The gravitational eddies from nearby phenomena create traps for the unwary or damaged. A plan began to form in Alex's mind. If I can get us deep enough into this graveyard, use the hulks for cover. Your ship is smaller, more maneuverable. We might lose them in the debris. Without waiting for her agreement, he began plotting a course. I need you to execute these maneuvers exactly as I call them. Can you do that? Kaylin took her position at the control interface. I am one with the silent tier. We will follow your guidance. What followed was the most intense flying Alex had ever witnessed. Kaylin translated his commands into the ship's systems with uncanny precision, threading the silent tier through increasingly narrow gaps between massive derelict vessels. Ancient hulks loomed around them, some the size of small moons, their broken spines stretching for kilometers through the void. Alex called directions with the focused intensity of a man whose survival depended on each word. Port 30 degrees, full reverse thrusters, then accelerate on my mark. Mark! The silent tier responded like a living thing, dancing between debris that would have shredded their hull on impact. She's more responsive than she looks, Alex commented, genuine admiration in his voice. Come on, beautiful, show us what you've got. Behind them, the Black Hound's larger vessels struggled to follow, occasionally grazing wrecks with shields that flared brilliantly in the darkness. They're still on us, Kaylin reported, her hands never leaving the control interface. But they're taking damage from the debris field. Alex spotted a massive wreck ahead, the broken spine of what must have been a capital ship, its segmented hull creating a tunnel-like formation. Through there, he ordered. Full speed, then cut engines and go silent once we're inside. Callan hesitated for only a fraction of a second before executing the command. Trust her, Alex said, surprising himself with the sentiment. She hasn't let us down yet. The silent tier shot forward, slipping into the cavernous space within the ancient wreck. Once inside, all systems powered down to minimal levels, leaving them drifting in near darkness. Through the viewport, they watched as the Black Hound's vessel prowled outside the wreck, scanning for them. Its searchlights played across the debris field, occasionally illuminating parts of the decaying structure around them. One wrong move, one sound that their sensors could detect, and they would be found. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Alex and Kaelin stood motionless on the bridge, barely breathing, as the predators circled outside their hiding place. Finally, the lights of the enemy vessel began to move away, its engines powering up for departure. They're leaving the wreck, Kaelin whispered. But they're not giving up. They're setting up a perimeter. Alex nodded grimly. They're blocking the exits from this debris field. He checked the navigational display. Every path out is covered. Kaelin studied the same display, her silver eyes reflecting the dim light of the console. Not every path, she said quietly. She pointed to a sector of space beyond the debris field, where the stars seemed to bend and twist unnaturally. Charybdis, the anomaly. They won't follow us there. Alex stared at the distortion on the display. Because it's suicide. It is our oath, Carolyn corrected, her voice taking on the formal cadence she used when speaking of her people's traditions. This is the end of our journey. The time to fulfill the promise. Alex looked from the display to Kaelin's resolute face. In her eyes, he saw not just determination, but acceptance. The calm certainty of someone who had always known their fate. No, he said, the words sharp in the quiet of the bridge. I didn't lose my team to die because of some oath I never took. There has to be another way. Kaelin's expression softened slightly. There is no other way. This is our duty now. Duty? Alex spat the word like it was poison. I've seen what duty does. It gets good people killed for no reason except that someone somewhere decided that was the protocol. He turned back to the navigational display, scanning for alternatives, refusing to accept the death sentence Kaelin proposed. But every other vector was indeed covered by the Black Hound's patrols. The only clear path led straight into the heart of Charybdis. Kaelin placed a gentle hand on his arm. You spoke of following protocols over instinct. This is not about protocols. This is about promise, honor, the survival of my people. Honor doesn't keep you alive, Alex muttered, but there was less conviction in his voice. Sometimes survival is not the highest goal, Carolyn replied. She moved to prepare the ship for its final journey, her movements ceremonial, almost ritualistic. I accept my fate. The silent tier will complete her purpose, and my clan's oath will be fulfilled. Alex watched her, conflict raging within him. Part of him, the cynical, pragmatic part that had kept him alive since the disaster that killed his team, screamed that this was madness. But another part, buried deeper, recognized something in Carolyn's unwavering commitment that resonated with the man he had once been. Before loss, before disillusionment. As Kaelin prepared the ship for its final voyage, Alex moved to the engineering console. If they were going to die, it would be on his terms. Not because of an oath, not because of duty, but because he chose it. "Step aside," Didi said, his voice cutting through the solemn atmosphere Kaelin had created. She looked up, startled by his tone. "What are you doing?" "Taking control." Alex began accessing the ship's power distribution systems, his fingers flying across the interface as Kaelin reluctantly granted him access through her biometric connection. "If we're going into that anomaly, we're doing it my way." Kaelin watched with growing confusion as Alex rerouted power from the propulsion systems to the deflector shields. "These modifications, they make no sense for our final journey." "That's because this isn't going to be our final journey." Alex continued working, his focus absolute. "You see death in that anomaly, I see a weapon." Understanding slowly dawned on Kaelin's face. "You intend to use Charybdis against the Black Hounds?" "Exactly." Alex finished his modifications and moved to the helm. "We're going to skirt the edge of the anomaly, not dive into it. Use its gravitational pull to slingshot us away while configuring the shields to focus and redirect its energy." Kaelin looked skeptical. Such a maneuver has never been attempted. The gravitational forces would tear apart any ship that approaches without full commitment to entry. "Most ships, yes." Alex allowed himself a grim smile. "But the Silent Tier isn't most ships, is she? You said she was built for this journey. Her shields, her structural integrity, they were designed to withstand Charybdis long enough to be destroyed on its terms. We're just repurposing that design." Hope and doubt warred in Kaelin's expression. "And what of my people's coordinates? The data must be destroyed." "And it will be," Alex assured her. "The navigational computer will be fried in the process, but we'll survive." Their discussion was cut short by proximity alarms. The Black Hounds had detected activity within the wreck and were closing in. "Decision time," Alex said, locking eyes with Kaelin. "Trust me, or trust the oath." Kaelin held his gaze for a long moment, searching for something in his eyes. Whatever she found there seemed to satisfy her, for she nodded once and took her position at the control interface. "I place the Silent Tier in your hands, Alex Thorne. May your instincts serve us better than our protocols." They erupted from their hiding place with all available power diverted to engines, catching the nearest Black Hound's vessel by surprise. The Silent Tier shot past it, already accelerating toward the waiting maw of Charybdis before the enemy could bring weapons to bear. "She's got more fight in her than I thought," Alex said, his hand caressing the edge of the console with something close to affection. "Let's see what she can really do." The ship seemed to respond to his words, to his faith in her capabilities. Systems that had been struggling now operated at peak efficiency, power readings stabilizing, shields strengthening. It was as if the vessel herself recognized the critical moment, drawing on reserves of energy previously untapped. Where before she had been silent and reluctant, now she sang, the vibration in her hull shifting to a higher, more determined frequency, like a warrior's battle cry. "They're pursuing," Kaelin reported as the sensors detected multiple vessels in formation behind them. "All of them." "Perfect," Alex muttered, focused on the approaching anomaly. The view screen showed the fabric of space itself seeming to fold and distort around a central point of absolute darkness. Light bent around it, creating a mesmerizing, terrifying spectacle. The Black Hounds closed the distance rapidly, confident in their quarry's desperation. A communication came through, Vex's voice triumphant and mocking. "A suicide run, human? How disappointingly predictable. We'll recover what we need from your wreckage." Alex ignored the taunt, his attention fixed on his modifications to the shield systems. "Approaching optimal distance. Stand by for my command." Kaelin's hands hovered over the controls, her entire body tense with concentration. The gravitational pull of Charybdis was already affecting the ship, making it shudder and groan as conflicting forces stressed its structural integrity. "Hold together, girl," Alex whispered to the ship. "Just a little longer." "Now," Alex shouted as they reached the precise point he'd calculated. Full power to modified shields. Execute slingshot maneuver. Kaelin's response was immediate and perfect. The silent tier banked sharply, riding the edge of the anomaly's gravitational well rather than plunging into it. The ship's shields, reconfigured to Alex's specifications, captured and focused the gravitational energy, creating a wave effect behind them. The Blackhounds, following too closely and unprepared for the maneuver, flew directly into this artificial gravity wave. The results were catastrophic. Their shields collapsed under forces they were never designed to withstand. Hull plating buckled and tore. The smaller vessels were simply crushed, while the flagship, Vex's command ship, broke apart in a series of secondary explosions as its power core destabilized. The silent tier rode the slingshot effect away from Charybdis, but not without cost. Warning lights flashed across every console as systems overloaded and failed. The unique navigational computers that held the coordinates to Elan's People's Sanctuary sparked and melted, the data they contained forever lost. The ship limped away from the anomaly, its engines sputtering and dying. Emergency power kicked in, maintaining life support, but little else. They were alive, but adrift. On the bridge, in the eerie quiet that followed their desperate gambit, Kaelin turned to Alex. Her expression was unreadable, a complex mixture of relief, grief, and uncertainty. "You saved us," she said softly. "But you've destroyed the last hope of my clan. The navigational data is gone, the oath unfulfilled." Alex met her gaze steadily. "I destroyed an old oath based on death. The coordinates are gone. Your people are safe from anyone who might use that data to find them." He extended his hand to her, a human gesture of agreement, of partnership. The palm was scarred, not just with the old marks of his military service, but with the fresh burn from the station's containment field, a wound earned protecting the silent tier. The engineer's hand, marked by work and combat, oil-stained and calloused, yet steady and capable. "You were right before," he said, his voice low but firm. "Sometimes survival is not the highest goal. Life is not just existing, but truly living." He glanced around at the ship that had carried them through impossible odds. "I propose a new oath, one based on life, not death." His voice took on the same formal cadence that Kaelin had used when reciting her clan's oath, but the words were transformed. "I swear by the scars of our battles, by the light of distant stars, that we shall forge us a new path with every breath we take. This is my covenant. This is the oath of the silent tier. I swear to be the guardian of this ship and your protector. Together we'll find a way to safeguard your people, not by hiding but by fighting." Kaelin looked at his outstretched hand, then back to his face. In his eyes she saw not the cynical survivor who had awakened her, but something else, a glimpse of the man he had been before loss had hardened him, and perhaps a vision of the man he could become again. Slowly, deliberately, she placed her blue hand in his, her healing touch resting gently on his scarred skin. The contrast was striking, her blue skin against his battle-worn hand, her regenerative nature against his enduring strength, her world of tradition and ritual meeting his world of pragmatism and adaptation. The ship around them hummed with a new harmony, as if acknowledging this union of opposites. The touch sealed more than an alliance. It was a new oath for the silent tier and its unlikely crew. Together, she agreed, her silver eyes reflecting the stars that stretched endlessly before them. Life, not mere survival. In that moment, the silent tier no longer seemed silent. The ship vibrated with renewed purpose. Systems that had been damaged beginning to self-repair, lights brightening to a warm glow around them. The vessel that had begun as a tomb now pulsed with possibility, no longer a relic of the past, but a herald of the future.